Yeah, heads up. Yeah. Ready. Yeah. Hello, my name's Leah Gazan, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Lori Idlout, the member from Nunavut, and Jenny Kwan, the member of Parliament from Vancouver East. And we're here today to stand in solidarity with the Ontario Chiefs who have raised serious concerns about the fast-tracking of Bill C-5, a bill that fails to uphold their constitutional obligations that are contained in Section 35. The constitutional obligations to obtain free, prior, and informed consent. There's no reason to fast-track a bill in the name of national interest, in a name of national interest that has been decided upon or will be decided upon in the absence of Indigenous peoples, rights holders. Now, I know the federal government has said that they're putting $40 million aside to put an Indigenous circle of advisors together on projects of national interest, but I want to be really clear that a circle of Indigenous folks that the government is putting in place, they are not the rights holders. The rights holders are here with me today, and they are saying, this is not okay. It's going to be a very long summer if Prime Minister Carney, with the help of the Conservatives, tries to push through this bill. So it's a great honor that I welcome today, first to the podium, Ontario Regional Chief Benedict.
Leah, for the opportunity and the invite today to speak at this important press conference. Our leadership, which is joining me here today, the rights holders in our region, in Ontario, who've just come out from in front of the Parliament here, joined by over 200 First Nation citizens, rights holders, youth, elders, with our sacred items, bringing forward a direct, clear message to the federal government around C-5, that the process that is being used to ram through this legislation, the undemocratic process, is undermining to the First Nation rights, the rights holders that are here today to make sure that this message is heard loud and clear. The government talks about truth and reconciliation, has legislation around UNDRIP, talks about free, prior, informed consent, and the process being used by the federal government to introduce legislation and bring it forward, ratified, within less than 2 months is unacceptable. I can tell you that Canadians ought to be alarmed. Canadians ought to be concerned that their government is using the actions happening by the United States, the threat of the economy, and the sovereignty of Canada. I can tell you that the First Nation rights holders know what sovereignty is about, and they know what threats are about as well. We have been subject to colonial legislation since the government has been making legislation, and C-5 is the wrong way to go about it. There's a right way and there's a wrong way to go about this. And today, our rights holders have been very clear. C-5 is a direct attack against the sovereignty, the jurisdiction of every First Nation in Ontario. It's a direct attack against the sovereignty of all nations across Canada. We want prosperity. We want to bring about jobs. We believe in sovereignty, but there's a right way to do it. And we can't do it this way. The Government of Canada cannot choose when they uphold the honour of the Crown. They cannot choose when they stand by the signatories of the treaty. It's not a choice. And the actions that they're taking today makes it clear that it's going to be a long summer. As a representative, as the Ontario Regional Chief, I support and advocate for the 133 First Nations across our regions, the rights holders. They are the rights holders. And we will support their actions, however they see necessary, whether it be in the courts, whether it be on the ground, whether it be creating awareness to Canadians, Ontarians, that C-5 is not acceptable. But I can tell you that in this country, the government wants certainty, wants investments, and investments that happen in First Nation territories, projects that happen in our communities, will not have certainty unless the rights holders are at the table. And let's be clear, Canada must do this right. C-5 in its current form and its fast track is unacceptable. And this afternoon we'll hear more insight and more positions from our rights holders, from our leadership, who are bringing about, letting Canada know it is now time to do the right thing and change the course. It's not law yet. It does not have received royal assent, and they can do the right thing. Miigwech.
Thank you, Regional Chief, and that's exactly what is going to happen in the interest of fast-tracking projects, using Trump's tariffs as an excuse. We're not going to be fast-tracking anything. We're fast-tracking our way into the courts. We're stalling progress. Why? Because this government is failing to uphold the rights of Indigenous peoples. And with that, I'd like to invite Ogidjita Kavanaugh to the stage to say, Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler to the stage to say a few words. Thank you.
I am not Francis Kavanaugh. My name is Alvin Fiddler, Grand Chief. That's my sacred responsibility that I currently have is to lead the Anishinaabe Nation. NAN is a political territory organization that represents 49 First Nation communities that belong to Treaty Number 9 and Treaty 5. That covers roughly 2/3 of Ontario's landmass, the northwest and north and northeast part of the province. So I just want to say miigwech, thank you to all of you for being here. Miigwech to the MPs from the NDP. Even though they don't have official party status, they're doing everything they can to stand with us because they know how important it is that we secure our children's future, that we protect our lands and our resources. I just want to start off by saying that how profoundly disappointed we are in this new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, and his government. That after so many years of his predecessor's effort to try to make that relationship work between this government and First Nations, that it's gone so many steps backwards, and that trust and that respect that we had worked so hard to build is pretty much gone. And so I would just remind him that he needs to live up to his obligations, the treaty obligations and the constitutional obligation that he has to work with us. I also want to say that we are not against prosperity. We want our people, we want our communities to be prosperous. That so many of our communities desperately need right now resources to address addictions and mental health and suicides. We are not against our communities having access to clean, safe drinking water. We are not against our communities having access to quality housing. We are not against our people getting jobs, with the reality right now that 80% of our communities are unemployed. We want all these things, but not at the expense of our rights and not at the expense of our children's future. That is why we're here, to remind this government that the resources, the rich resources, the waters, the minerals, the trees that are in our lands and our territories are ours. It's not Ontario or Canada to try to dictate to ourselves or to industry how these resources should be utilized. That's our responsibility. And so even if this bill passes, even if it does become law, that it will not apply in our territories. I said earlier today that we have our own laws. We have our own sacred responsibilities to protect our lands, our resources, to ensure that our children have a future. And we are determined to continue to uphold those responsibilities that we have. That's why we're here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Grand Chief Fiddler, for your leadership. And I just wanted to make mention as well that we're joined today by Saul Mamakwa, who has been pushing against Ford's government on Bill 5, similar to this bill, but as I've heard, Bill C-5 is even worse than Bill 5, which is absolutely abhorrent. Next, I'd like to call Raymond Kataquabit. Raymond Kataquabit to the stage, please. Thank you.
Wachai, Ramon Kataquapit, Ishnakasan, Arovska Dostrin, Mixo Totem. Hello, I'm Ramon Kataquapit. I'm from Arovska First Nation and Amigo Clan. And before I take a few minutes of your time, I want to call on the Great Bear Spirit. So I'm going to do one push-up on this. And I ask my leadership that knows the song to sing with me. Miigwech for taking the time to listen. I sit on the Anishinaabe Nation Oshkarazak Council, the Chiefs of Ontario Youth Council, and the Ndayan Youth Council. And today here I'm representing the youth of all in Ontario and Canada. And we completely reject Bill 5 and Bill C-5. And I'm not going to regurgitate how it's going to cause problems to our land. I'm going to tell you how we're going to respond. You will see us up by the river of your special economic interest points. We'll be there to stop you. We'll be there with our teepees, and we'll be there with our family and our ogichita. And you'll see us in front of your front door as of today. You see our tired people outside. Our youth are outside. Our mothers, our elders, our leaders, we're outside, and we're not going anywhere. No matter what bill you pass, Indigenous will stay, First Nations will stay, and we'll be here. We'll be ready to respond. I'll be leading. I want to lead the youth, all of Ontario and Canada, in the movement called the Okinawak movement. I took the O from Ogichita, and the Kinawak is Ojibwe for the group of people, the people. So that means the Warriors People movement. And this will be youth-led. You will see us in your cities hubs. At the same time, you'll see my family up north waiting for you. Geronimo Kataquapit, he's leading Here We Stand. And he's up there right now along the river waiting for you. The Mishkegawak Youth Council is leading Youth Rising Together. They'll be in Timmins waiting for you. Okinawak, we're building right now. And I do a call out for all youth, all First Nations youth, to come and contact the Shkadazak Council to join us in this group effort to stop Bill 5, to stop Bill C-5, and to make sure our rights aren't relinquished. We supersede anything from this modern day government by, believe the farthest date is 11,000 years. That's a long time, and we're already sophisticated by then. So we have no reason to listen to these legislation anymore that dictates if we're people or not, because we're here and we'll continue to be here. And miigwech, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much. And our leader here mentioned outside, he spoke about predecessors. I was a predecessor during Idle No More. It shows how old I'm getting. But we stopped Harper. And there's still time for this government to do this right, to avoid all of this, to uphold their constitutional obligations, to receive full consent of Indigenous peoples. They still have time to slow this down. With that, I'd like to call, I'm looking at the list here, Grand Chief Linda DeBosque. Grand Chief Linda DeBosque, sorry. Grand Chief.
Good afternoon. My name is Linda DeBosque, and I'm the Grand Council Chief for the Anishinaabe Nation here in Ontario. You know, 23 years ago, we found ourselves in a very similar situation in relation to this government's actions. Bill C-45 and C-38 worked its way through the voices of all of our people across this nation, across this country. And here we are again today, talking about the same messaging that was shared back then, that is still real and is still alive and well today. To think that 7 days is long enough to provide our First Nations with this bill is absolutely ignorant, it's absolutely disgusting, and it really signifies the relationship that this government sees that it has with our First Nations people. And as my colleagues have quite eloquently described, what will happen potentially in the coming days, weeks, and months is very real. And our people are not going to be quiet anymore. As the original stewards of this land, we are very concerned about the environmental impacts, as well as, you know, the violation of treaty rights has on our First Nations people. And today I'm joined with many of our chiefs from the Anishinaabe Nation who share the same concerns. This government, through its process and action, has constrained the ability of our First Nations people to share our voice in committee, in Senate, and in fact, our Ontario Regional Chief, myself, have been removed from these witness lists that are to enable to provide testimony and to share with the government our concerns. And when we put money ahead of the relationship that our First Nations have or ought to have with this government, we are putting the economy backwards as well. Our First Nations are no longer going to accept the crumbs that we have been given or allowed to be given by this government through its respective colonial legislation, and it has to end. And so today we are here again to oppose Bill 5, to have this government consider the withdrawal of Bill C-5, and you know what, actually maybe work throughout the summer, like most Canadians, like our leadership, and work on this to get it right. There is time. Our First Nations are not opposed to building an economy, but it needs to be done with us as true equal partners as was committed to in the original treaty signing of our nations. Miigwech.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think the message is very clear here today, nothing about us without us. With that, I'd like to call Agijida Kavanaugh to the podium, please, to share a few words.
Bonjour, Anishinaabe. Can you hear me? Name is Francis Kavanaugh. I'm the Grand Chief of Grand Council Treaty Number 3. I represent 28 First Nations, 26 of them in Ontario, and our treaty overlaps into Manitoba. We have 2 in Manitoba, so we have to deal with 2 jurisdictions when we talk about our laws. Anyways, we have our organization, our nation. We practice a traditional governance. We have a 4-directional model, and we have constituent councils, women, elders, men, youth, LGBTQ, and I think that's what, and we're working on maybe creating another body for the disabled. Anyways, this bill C-5, just when I first heard about it, it just very angry. I'm not the kind of person that jumps up and down and shows emotion, but I am very angry at what's going on, and this government, when we first negotiated a revenue sharing agreement with the previous government, the Wynne government, then an election happened, and the incoming government, I asked them if they were going to honor the agreement that we had just made with the previous government, and their response was, what's good for the Anishinaabe is also good for the municipalities. So what I told him at that point is I laughed at him. I said, so where's their land base? These municipalities you're talking about, they're squatters on our land. These are our lands, and we will fight along with the rest of the nations in Ontario to get the government to rescind what they've done, and to me, they've literally treating us like subhumans. To me, that's what they're doing. They failed to consult with us. They pushed their bill through in just a matter of a week and stuff like that. So that's not to me reconciliation. And besides, reconciliation for me is not a right word because we never had a good relationship with the governments over time. And to me, reconciliation is rebuilding a good relationship we had at one time, but we have never had that. So for me, and Treaty 3, we will fight tooth and nail to have this bill rescinded. So with that, miigwech for everyone that's here. Miigwech.
And with that, we'll take questions.
With the Canadian Press, I have a question for either Chief Spidler, Tabasige, or Benedict. Is it your understanding that only the provincial or regional First Nations groups were consulted or given the documents about this, or any of the chiefs here, have you received that same document when they were given out? Does that make sense?
I think the first time we all saw it was when it was released last Friday.
Right. I mean, the 7 days that they gave, was that only to the regional or provincial offices, or were individual First Nations contacted at that point?
released publicly online, so all of us could actually see the bill, but we were never consulted prior to the bill being drafted.
And the Indigenous Services Minister said this morning that she wants to introduce an Indigenous-based analysis lens that they would apply to all legislation that would come after this bill was already done. What should the government have done differently with the introduction and the process that this bill has taken so far?
I think that's unacceptable. Like, that is so backwards. And, you know, they should have talked to us even before they were contemplating drafting this bill. And that's why we're here today, is to say that what they're doing now is not acceptable.
Grand Chief Fiddler, Chris Rand, CBC. Very good to see you again, sir. I got to ask you about your part of Ontario, the space that, what I'm trying to get at, sir, is there a project that is triggering this? Is the Ring of Fire a concern enough? Because you need a project to come along to cause problems, right?
Yep.
Am I making sense? Like, right now, we have an esoteric bill that will, in your words, deal with the rights, but they still need a project to come along and.
Yeah, I don't think, you know, in any of our statements prior to today, we haven't talked about just one project. It's the whole thing. It's the whole process. It's the whole Bill 5 provincially and now Bill 5 federally that totally excludes First Nations. And that's why we're here again today, because as I said in the early question, that we just saw the bill when it was publicly released last Friday, and we were given a few days to try to respond to it to appear in front of a committee. We put our names forward, and we heard later on that our names were taken off the list. So and that's why I've been saying that Bill C-5 is worse than Bill 5, because at least in Bill 5, with Ontario, we were at least given 5-7 minutes to appear in front of a committee. Whereas with this one, we're just totally excluded.
So for precision, there's Ring of Fire across hydro line, across pipeline is not necessarily the concern. It's the process of, those are still possibilities. It's just what's happening with Indigenous rights and the bill and so on.
Yeah, and we've always maintained our position that whatever development happens in our territory, it should be within the pace that our own communities dictate, whatever that pace is, and to ensure that all the appropriate steps are taken, including environmental assessments, including making those projections in terms of even how our people will benefit from those any developments that will happen in our territory. So and that's why we've said that we are not against development per se. We just need to ensure that our communities are included in the planning or even in the co-drafting of some of these bills.
Can you maybe elaborate, or Grand Chief Linda, could you elaborate maybe on what happened at committee and study of this bill? Were you invited and disinvited, or why aren't you appearing today before the committee?
We were not invited.
I will speak to that a little bit. Grand Chief, Ontario Regional Chief Abram Bannock. And so we received notification from the Transport Committee that study will begin from 11 o'clock in the morning to 11:59 p.m. in the evening, which is quite a long time. And this is your time given. And then several hours later, we're told that now the committee's been shrunk down to 3 hours. The time that we gave you is no longer in that time. And so we'll see if we can find you in time in the 3 hours that initially was 13 hours. Right?
Did they give any explanation why it was?
Well, I
reduced,
think
or-
that the sentiment that sets is exactly what we've seen from the beginning. That we're going to do this, we're going to limit the ability for anybody, including the rights holders, to have input into this and push it through. We have just come out of Ontario having the same thing. And we will, give a little bit of acknowledgement that at least we got to go there and say what we needed to say in the 7 minutes. At this point, we have not had any opportunity to say anything, which is unacceptable, and Canadians should be worried about that. This is fundamentally, this legislation gives the government the ability to do what they want, wherever they want, and to have a committee to review laws that they can exempt, that there's no sense in reviewing something that doesn't apply. It's ludicrous. And to think that Ontario can do the same, we were thinking that now Ontario can do the same, we'll have to rely on federal laws to protect some things that are important to us. The waters, the lands. Now the federal government is doing the same thing. So who is left to protect the resources? The federal government is failing us and the province is failing us.
I know that you're talking, I know you've talked about, you want the withdrawal of the bill. Many Indigenous groups have talked about looking for more time. I was just wondering, is there any amendments that you are thinking of that could be added to this bill, you know, assuming that it
Yeah,
gets
look,
voted?
the committee in Ontario and the committee in Canada has talked about consultation. Consultation belongs with the 133 rights holders. They determine what level of consultation that includes. And so to think that 7 days is enough for anybody to have adequate review, let alone consultation in our communities that may include having ceremony, may include talking with the elders, the youth, going out onto the land and doing ceremony, there's absolutely no time that can be done. So to think that, you know, if we have an ability, the process needs to be extended. There needs to be at least a semblance of regular process on this, not a week.
I have a question for Raymond and Hannah. Sorry to put you both on the spot. As youth, why do you think it's important to be here? And what would you tell the Prime Minister about how you feel about this bill and the process?
Wache, thank you for your question. It's important for our youth to be in these rooms because it's an obvious answer. We're the future, but we're also your present right now. And we're learning and we're seeing everything that the government is doing at this moment, and it just shows our path down in the future, the path for my kids, my great-grandkids, and so forth. And I'm fighting for that right now. And that's why I'm here standing. I'm thinking about my nieces, my nephews. I'm thinking about my family. I'm thinking about our rights in this world. And that's why it's important, because many may not know that are non-Indigenous of the seventh fire prophecy. And right now we're in the seventh fire. That's the youth. And we're going to make big change. And we're going to make sure that this never happens again and that we're respected as people. Which...
Hi, Alicia. Our youth need to be here because we are our future. We are everyone's future, whether you're First Nations or you're not. This is applicable to you. Canadians across the country, Ontarians across the province. This matters because we are the future generations that are going to have to deal with these outcomes from you wreaking havoc on our land. What happens when there's no more clean water to drink? What happens when we can't breathe oxygen in the air? I'm a nurse and I get to see firsthand in my community the detrimental impacts that come with wreaking havoc on the land. It goes right and directly to our mental health and our physical well-being. It doesn't matter if you're First Nations or not. That's applicable. We all come from the same walk of being and we're all humans. And to be human, we all require elements of this land to live. So if the land is sick, we're going to be sick as well. So I think that I know that it's imperative for First Nations youth to be here across the board because this is our land. We don't want this bill, and we are the future generations that are going to govern this land and save it. Our people, that everyone behind me here today, 133 First Nations Ontario has helped save this province since time immemorial, since Canada's been here. And we're going to continue to do that.
I'm Chief Shelley-Moore Frappier of Tamagami First Nation. I wanted to go back to the projects and what we're talking about because there is a dilution in the duty to consult. The duty to consult is already weak, and what Bill C-5 does is takes any teeth out of any levers that we have as First Nations to negotiate and to work with proponents in this. So that's a major part of why we are opposing what is happening here. So I just wanted to bring that to light and to make that point. Miigwech.
Is that because there's no definition of consultation in the bill? I just want to be clear.
That's part of it, yeah.
Another question.
A last question, please.
Sorry. In the Senate yesterday, there was a proposal, I believe it was from Nathan Obed from ITK, to include a non-degradation clause in the legislation. Would any of you support that, or does that not go far enough for what you're looking for here?
So I think the point here is that, rights holders were given 7 days. That does not meet the standards of free, prior, and informed consent, which means free of coercion. This whole process, limiting committee time, not consulting with First Nations, including nations who have signed modern land claims agreements, is a complete violation of the Constitution. All bills, all legislation going forward are supposed to be compatible, compliant with Bill C-15. And that enshrines all the rights within the United Nations Declaration into Canadian laws. This was passed in the last Parliament under a Liberal government. What are they doing it? They are violating their own law. And so I'm here today in solidarity with the Ontario Chiefs, along with my colleagues, MP Jenny Kwan and MP Lori Idlout, to say that we are not going to allow the Liberals, with the help of the Conservatives, to violate the fundamental human rights of Indigenous people. That includes Indigenous legal traditions, and that includes Indigenous rights and constitutional rights contained in Section 35, and that means they must have full consent on these matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Our laws come from Creator, not from the House of Commons. Remember that. You don't need our consent, you need our permission.
Can you
If you are in
take a
violation
picture?
of the treaty
Okay.
or the treaties at any time, you can pack your belongings and leave our shores. The only reason you are here is because you signed treaty. If you violate that treaty, we will ask you to leave. This is our land, it's our job to look after it, and that includes when there are people here who do not honor our processes or our ways. You want to work with us? We want to work with you. If you don't want to honor our treaties, pack your stuff and leave.